good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it finds you in this beautiful world when you're watching this next episode of the Self-Care Diaries and Dating. In 2022, I decided to bring in the dimension of dating into my business. And today we are joined by my darling friend and colleague, Angela James. Welcome,
Hi.
beautiful.
Hello, Leigh, and what a joy to be with you today. I've got this freaking light shining my eyes. Okay, that's better. What a joy to be with you. And again, also, welcome to everybody, wherever you might find yourself in the world. It's just a delight to be with beloved Leigh. We've walked a little walk, a journey together, and I love your energies. I just love what you do out in the world. And congratulations on this new massive big step that you've taken in terms of moving through your spiral. I don't like the word pivot because you can just pivot and stay in the same place. But yeah, you've moved massively into the spiral that is you and what you're taking out into the world. So yeah, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of tips from you because I haven't been in the dating world forever. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's Europe. One of the reasons why I took this journey, and you've affirmed me beautifully through your work as a psychic and helping me to just really get clear on what my purpose is. So it's really stunning to have you here. You there's so many different dimensions to you. I love this piece you wrote that there's all aspects of me. You're an intuitive psychic, a teacher, and a storyteller, and which come together to offer you a world of learning designed to let your light shine, to weave your dreams as we collectively offer ourselves in service to those we are called to shine our light upon. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about being a psychic, and how that relates to dating. You and I are in the throes of collaborating with I'm going to say it, a singles festival here in Joburg.
Putting it out there.
I'm putting it out there. The date is the 16th of June, which is Youth Day here in South Africa. So for me, it's totally about bringing out the inner child and just coming and playing and having some fun. And you're gonna do hot seats psychic readings. So we're gonna be in the room. Tell us a little bit about what you see that looking like.
Okay, so before we get into that, just to give you, Leigh, just heads up, because it's such a joy to be able to do the work that I do and bring through the messages with somebody who works with them. There are a lot of people who kind of connect with spiritual psychics or psychic energy, where they kind of want to get what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to hear on their soul journey. And one of the things that you asked me to just look at is, how does this really link to self-care? So yes, the dating, but also to self-care. And a huge part of the component of self-care is our spiritual connection and our spiritual growth, and how we bring spirit into matter. And you're a great example of that. When we tune in and we connect with the energies, and then bam, Lee's got it out there, and out pops this whole new vehicle as part of your business going into dating. And not just, it's not about the dating, it's about bringing people together from a sense of who they are, an inner sense of who they are, as opposed to let's just do another dating app and I've had conversations on what this is looking like. So it really is around, and I think I was just tuning into this interview a little bit earlier on. We are under the impression that when we start to deal with spiritual psychic energies and we talk about masculine and feminine, that it goes into the gender space. It's absolutely not true. It's got nothing to do with gender. It's got everything to do with energy. And that we all have two halves of a whole, and we all have the sacred masculine and the divine feminine. And in the world that we're living in at the moment, both sides, masculine and feminine energies, not gender, are out of balance. And part of the challenge that we have at the moment, both in terms of self-care and also going into relationships with others, is to bring ourselves into balance and to have a whole lot healthier sense of who we are in our beautiful divine feminine and in the sacred masculine. There's I'll do a whole workshop around all of that information in terms of what that means. And it comes together in the balance of walking the sacred path, whether we are male gender or female gender. As I say, these energies have nothing to do with botany. I mean, not our botany, our biology, and everything to do with the energy that we embody as individuals. So the spiritual psychic energies and how they relate to dating is really a lot around our own personal development. I mean, again, you are one of the testimonies to the inside out work that you do with the information that you've been given based on the questions that you have. So it's about how do I have an added assist from a spiritual space in terms of moving into and being more of who I am as I show up for myself and therefore them in relationships. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I mean, it's beautiful. You and I were in a summit together I can't even remember, this COVID thing is really just why. I think it was 2020, right?
Yeah, it was before
2020. And we were speaking, it was the online feminine summit, and we were speaking there about the balancing of the feminine and the masculine energies within. And if I just look at myself, for such a long time I've been the staunch feminist, and when I was younger, and now I call myself a new age feminist, and the toxic patriarchy and. But the truth is, Angela, for the longest time I've been driving in my masculine energy, and the masculine energy is vital in our time, just as important as the feminine energy. So I'm learning to step more into my feminine energy, and I've really struggled with it. Like receiving, I'm really good at giving, to the point that it's actually not healthy. And then I get resentful that people don't reciprocate, but I'm not receiving. So I'm not in a receptive space. I'm not in a receptive energy. So I started listening to, there's a lady that sings a song about divine feminine, and I'm starting to look into how do I dress differently, how do I speak differently, and there are times that I need to be more in my masculine energy and more protective and driven and driving and pushing forward. But I must say, it feels quite awkward to receive, and in the dating game, I'm sure a lot of people sit with that same difficulty, and receiving the knowledge and the wisdom that you have for them through the psychic readings, I think is really, really, really important. I think we must maybe just speak about that in January, I'd done an Akashic Records, and for those that are not familiar with
not
Akashic,
with me though. Not
yes,
with me.
not with you. Yes, that's a good point. With somebody else, I did a workshop. I attended a workshop. And if you want to know what Akashic Records are, please post in the comments, and I will bring Angela back, and she will come and talk to us about Akashic Records. And I was a bit confused about the Akashic Record because I didn't know what it meant. I mean, it looked beautiful, but I didn't know what it meant. And I hadn't discussed it with you. And then the last reading that you did for me, you spoke to me about my dating business and how, where I'm going. And you described exactly what had happened in my Akashic Records, which was just mind-blowing.
Without me knowing that you've done that Akashic.
Yeah. So I mean, this stuff works. What you do works, and I think that one does need to be in a receptive space, an open space to receiving, and having an open mind, and and willing to sit with it a little bit as well and see the connections. And I mean, basically you told me about the maypole, which I saw in my Akashic Records, and the celebration of people dancing around the maypole, which I'd seen. And that for me was the birthing of the Singles Festival. That's the celebration of what I want to create with the Singles Festival. So this shit works. Like my friend Jacques de Villiers says, you have to eat your own dog food, and I'm telling you, this dog food, it doesn't taste like dog food, but the stuff that you speak about works.
So there's a couple of things, Leigh, coming up. First off, gifting and receiving is a very feminine energy, and you talk about the struggle, and it is a little bit of a struggle because it's so counter to the way that we've been raised. In fact, I actually want to take a step back as well. talking about being the feminist and now being the new age feminist. In fact, the energies have shifted and changed. This is my view, and I'm sharing this in terms of my own consciousness. For me, when we look at the cycles of where we are and we connect this now with alchemy, the feminism, activism movements, wherever they are, it doesn't matter whether it's racism, gender, whether it's got anything to do with sexual orientation, doesn't matter. Things like the Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, all of those things. Going back to the 60s, the burn the bra and all of those things around the hippie era. All of that activism is the fire energy, and the fire energy is designed to burn away what no longer serves. We've now come through, and even as a country in South Africa, 1994, pre-1994, post-1994, the activism of those aspects as well was also all fire energy, burning away what is no longer serving us as humankind. What follows in after the fire is water, which connects to emotions and the emotional body, and we're going through massive shifts in terms of the opening up of the emotional bodies, not only of the planet. That's part of what COVID was for, was to actually open up the Earth's emotional body and therefore our own. And then we move into Earth, and the Earth is grounding. And for me, the energy that is shifting into play now is not so much the activism as it is the advocacy. So things like sovereignty start to come into play. Things like social justice that now start. Social justice is not communism. Social justice is around just, fair ways in which we engage with one another as humankind. Unity consciousness. All of that energy is now shifting into the planet. And that's why this whole dynamic of balancing our sacred masculine with our sacred feminine becomes important. And when you look at the sacred masculine, and you look at that even within women, post Second World War, or Second World War, where women would wear into the factories while the men were away fighting, coming through that whole history, the men coming back from the war, women being relegated back again to being so-called good women at home, doing the housework. Then, of course, the 60s and the 60s revolution. And then the opening up of the feminine into going into the world of work and into what was previously the domain of men. And very much a patriarchal energy. Again, the energy, not the emphasis on gender. And what ended up happening was women swung into their masculine. So the pendulum swing went right out into the masculine energies in order to be able to take on the patriarchy. And in many respects, what they did was that it did a huge amount of damage, because women were then seen as ballbusters. The stereotyping that went on around women didn't do anything to advance the cause of what the divine feminine unity is about. And you aptly describe it in terms of your own experience. And what you're finding now is that you're moving into the softening. So the little ticks on the floor is not a dog. What you're finding is the softening into embracing the balance of the divine feminine. And that's not at the expense of the masculine. It's bringing the two energies into balance. And very often the sacred masculine is balanced by the divine feminine within ourselves, and also then when we engage with others. Whether we are dating the same sex, different sex, doesn't matter. It's about how we end up showing up in the energies of who we are and what we have to gift and receive in and from the world. And so the other thing that you talk about, which is part of the feminine, is being in gifting and receiving. That is not a masculine tendency at all. Gifting and receiving is very feminine. So if we're talking about dating, how am I preparing myself to gift me myself, which is where the self-care comes in. Those are dates that I'm having with me. As well as how do I then take that, who I am, that person, vehicle, soul of who I am, out into the world and gift myself in a relationship with others, whether they're friendships, colleagues, and specifically in the intimate relationship. Because I'm a firm believer, and I mean, this work is work I started in 2005, I think. I'm a firm believer that unless we can have an intimate love affair with ourselves, how on earth do we ever hope to establish intimacy with others? And again, whether it's friendships, one-on-one partners, doesn't matter. So the divine feminine shows us the way to intimacy. Now, where the masculine comes in is the masculine is very action-orientated, very focused, very directional. And once the energy, and it oscillates, it's like the infinity symbol. So you move from feminine into masculine and then back again into it's not an either or, it's an and part of that skill is knowing when to use which energy and which energy is appropriate in which space. And that takes a whole new skill set that we've never been trained to actually deliver on. So in your just in your comments there's a whole world that we can unpack just in how to learn to work with women. And certainly within psychic readings, a lot of the women, particularly because mainly women see me at the moment, they'll come and they'll say to me, is so the right partner for me? And the normal stock standard response from our guides is they are the right person for you at this time in your life, because they've come to present to you a lesson of how you need to start claiming your power back. So one of the things that came up for me last year, and I think you were involved, I can't remember if you were involved in it, I don't know, the days just run into each other, where we ran a little mini conference online. It wasn't the feminine workshop that I was involved with you earlier on, but we ran a mini conference online. It was the first time. It was really funny, but anyway, that's a whole story in and of itself. But the interesting part about that was it was birthed from a foot in the small of my back and a voice coming from spirit going, beloved child, it is now time to rise. And part of that is to challenge the narrative. And that narrative, more often than not, is not the external narrative. We challenge the narrative by doing the inner work and showing up in our authentic space. And what I've also learned around that is that our authenticity evolves and grows as we evolve and grow. It's not a destination to get to, it's part of our journey. And the more self-aware we are, the more we know about ourselves, the more we are able to show up in a space of being authentic. And it doesn't mean to say we don't have to be perfect and walk on water. That's not authentic. I mean, we were talking and joking a little bit beforehand. The authentic thing is my nose running. I'm not going to sit here like a statue hoping my nose is not going to run down my face and not wipe my nose while I'm on an interview. It's that kind of authenticity that lends itself to intimacy. So, just bouncing that back to you.
So, I love what you're saying about the balancing of the masculine and feminine within, and that we're actually there's no real guidance that we've received on how to do that. But I think that going into the deeply intuitive part of who we are, being the feminine, is the lesson, and we're able, with intentionality and consciousness, be able to flow between those states, and in the process gather, develop, grow a deep sense of self-compassion and compassion for others as we fuck that up sometimes, and how we learn how to be in this world. I love that you said that the divine feminine coming forward does not have to be at the expense of the masculine. The masculine is as vital as the feminine is. So I love that. Thank you. So let's talk a bit. I don't know if you feel like doing some hot seat psychic readings, but the picture that I'm getting is.
Because just as an aside, the picture that Leah is talking about is her intuition she's tuning into.
Yeah.
So, in case you're wondering where that's coming from.
Yes, what I'm meaning. Yeah. So I see in pictures the spirit speaks to me in like little video clips. So I'm seeing the energy of the planet, and I'm seeing the love energy of the planet, and these two beings or energies. And I'm wondering what is, and like you said, it's not gender specific, it's energetically specific. And I wonder, could the guide speak to us a little bit about what is the role of love relationships? What's the role of dating? What is the vision for dating at this time? At the time that our souls are expressing its existence right now.
So immediately I'm being shown the image of the blessed Pisces, and for what people who don't know what that is, I work a lot with sacred geometry. It's like my favorite language. It's the two circles. So here is me, here is another person. I'm going to actually give you another practical example that I was given. And the two, it's not two souls becoming one, but the two, as you're dating, starts to overlap. And what actually happens in the beginning of dating, and I'm not giving you a psychic reading now, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. This was an analogy that was given to me by a colleague a long time ago. He said, you've got two separate entities, and it could be male, female, could be male, male, could be male, female, it doesn't matter. Two separate entities who now come together either through the dating rituals or however they've now come together. And what essentially happens in the beginning of a lot of relationships is the two literally try to become one like this. And it's the person where you almost lose yourself. It's kind of like, this is when it's really cool, and the hot sweaty palms and the vultures in the stomach and all that excitement that goes with dating in the beginning. And this could, that kind of the twinkly eyes and when this is the one and all that excitement, the stuff that comes in the day. And then what starts to happen, and you've had some experiences of this recently as well, is that the two people then start to split apart again and start taking back their own personalities and their own energies. And the whole question around, and looking at it from a psychogeometric point of view, is that if you do not have an overlap, which is known as the vesica Pisces, it looks like a diamond like that, like the marquee diamond shape, a double pointed tear, it looks like that, which is the intersection of the two circles. If you do not have at a values and beliefs and consciousness level, and this is my own experience as well, a synergy between the two entities, the two beings, the two souls, it does not bode well for a good relationship. It really doesn't. And I mean, I look back in my own relationship history, and why did they never last? It's because that fundamental foundation in terms of values, beliefs was not there. And that's part of the work that I do, where, we've looked at you and your purpose. I do that work with individuals as well as for businesses, where it's around when I come into my own self, and then if I add the complexity of another person coming into my space, how do I then develop the discernment as to who is for me and who is not for me? Because that's my choice ultimately. It's not about what the other person does to me, it's the choice that I make. And I know that for myself, in many instances, or I wouldn't say many instances, but for a long time since I've been out of the dating scene, is that I made decisions through my life which didn't come from that sense of authentic self. It didn't come from me gifting and receiving. It came very often from me being in fear that I would be alone. So all of those motivations that sit behind it come into play. But in answer back to your question and how dating can play a role, when people are showing up in their truth, and that doesn't mean perfection, when they're in their truth and they come together vibrationally with somebody else who's in truth, invariably that truth is love. And what it entails is dropping from here in our head. This is the longest distance on the planet, is the distance between our head and our heart. And what it means is coming into the fullness of opening our hearts to receive and give, because that's the space we receive and give from. We don't give from here. This is where all the noise goes on, and all the mind matter, as my friend John calls it, actually continues going over and over in our heads. And it's one of the people who I really, really enjoy her work so much is Brené Brown, talking about being vulnerable, and that's what it takes. Wholehearted living in her books, Gifts of Imperfection, where she talks about wholehearted living. It is about dropping into the heart. It is about becoming vulnerable. It is about taking risk, not stupid risk, but calculated risk in the sense of and boundaries, and also a lot of the things you teach in terms of self-care. All of that comes into being. And it's the inner work I need to do on me first before I go out into the world. Most of us are trained to go out into the world to look for, God help us, these poor men, Prince Charming, who's going to be coming to save us. Because that's what we socialize from little, is that there's always going to be a knight in shining armor, serendipity, all of those. Well, they do exist. Those things do exist, but it's what we do with them. And it's whenever we are looking externally for somebody or something to make us whole and complete, that's when we lose the plot. It's around I am complete enough in myself. And even the word I am with a capital A, connected to my higher self, my God self. I am enough. I don't need to contrive and to try and become somebody I'm not anymore, because I'm trying to fill either a hole in the donut, or I'm trying to become, twist myself into a pretzel based on what somebody else's expectations are of me. So it's around, that's where it's through the opening of the heart chakra, and it starts with our own vesica Pisces. Because when you look at that shape is our entry into our God self. And when we're in our God self, we're in our heart. So that was the image that I saw immediately as you just started to talk about that. And if we're wanting to bring love onto the planet, love into a relationship with somebody else, it starts with us loving ourselves. So the work that you do with self-care and the whole element of self-love, really, for me, if you're starting to want to get into the dating scene, you have to start with loving yourself.
Yeah, I mean, two things. I woke up this morning going, my God, how long has it taken me to get this? Like, I'm turning 48 tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, my hat, like, seriously, it's taken me a long time to get that the deep sense of self-love, and how I felt so abandoned by other people because they've been a mirror of how I've abandoned myself, but I'm very grateful to all those experiences, because it did take me a few goes at it for it to really sink in. So I'm very grateful to the men that I've loved, and the men that that have loved me, and been patient and held my hand to this point where I can go, okay, I get it. And I think being in recovery from drug addiction and alcoholism and all the others that I struggle with, or I don't struggle with them, that have impacted my life. There was one very powerful moment early in my recovery where somebody came to me and said, let us love you until you learn to love yourself. And that really meant a lot to me, because for the longest time people would say, you can't love others if you don't love yourself. And I was like, well, I don't know if that's true, because I know how to be a vessel to love other people, but I didn't know how to be the vessel for myself. I didn't know how to take the love for myself as well. Yep. So the love of grace, and for me it's about Jesus, and the universal love, and pouring that and allowing it to pour through me to other people, which you speak about, my energy. And now I'm learning how to let that fill me, and then from the fullness come out of me. The overflow goes to the world.
My guys are telling me to tell you. So we're talking about receiving. So can you receive the love from the world of spirit before you start to give it out to everybody else?
Exactly. And
that's where we learn how to receive. We learn how to receive. It's always spirit into matter, and then matter back into spirit. You can't mess with natural law. The natural law says to us that we need to be able to receive from the world of spirit and then draw it down and be in matter. Now, one of the things when we're talking, and I know you've been doing self-care work for a long time. You and I had a discussion a long time ago about, is it self-care or is it self-love? Is it self-love? Well, self-love is a part of self-care. And I'm going, no, it's self-care is a part of self-love. And it's chicken or egg. I mean, it's not who's right or who's wrong. But I've fundamentally gotten to the point where I understand from my heart space it is about self-love. And then it manifests. So from spirit it's self-love, and it manifests as self-care. And that's so that. It's not an either or, it's not on a spectrum. Yeah. It's opening to receive, taking care of me in order to be. I mean, everybody bandies around the whole thing in the airplane when you put your oxygen mask on your face before you try and do it for others. Never a true word is actually said, because as empaths, we're also so used to giving energy out to others, and we end up being depleted and sick and relationships intact, all of those things, because we have not been taking care of ourselves. The other notion around that is the fact that we've been socialized as women, particularly now. I am getting into the gender thing a little bit, but we've been socialized as women that we have to take care of everybody else first before we take care of ourselves. And that goes way back. I mean, that goes into, the little woman coming home coiffed in the 50s with her hair done and her petticoat and high heels, serving with an apron on, serving the Lord and Master his meal, and the children have to go to bed because children are seen and not heard. All those archaic rituals, customs, points of view that no longer serve us as we move into the open of the heart. And again, I'd love to say this to the men, this is not about, anything bashing. I don't even go into that space. It's got nothing to do with that. One of the most incredibly beautiful experiences is sharing a space and a connection with, and I'm going to say here, a man who is in his balanced energy. So a long time ago, I think it was about 2005, I started doing a lot of this work, and I wrote a program called Into Me I See, which was about having a love affair with me. And then the combination part of that is intimates. So it's INT-I-mates. I haven't run that program ever yet. Still got to write it. It'll come. But it's really about how do I then have and show up in that space of intimacy with not only, now that I've learned how to do it for me, how do I now do it for somebody else? So I told you, we've got lots of work to do. That is, it's about I need to feel whole within myself, because then I can gift myself to the world. We were taught as women that was self-centered and selfish and self-indulgent. If you were taking time out for you, I mean, you could go, I remember my mom, I'm not going to hear me knock on my mom or dad either, but I remember things like that generation of women. Your thing about taking care was going to the hairdresser for once a week and having the rollers put in your hair and sitting at the hairdresser. And then the rest of the time was always about serving others. There's nothing wrong with being of service to others as a mother, as a wife, in the feminine energy, provided you're taking the space out to take care of you. So one of the things that I coined when I was doing this work in 2005, a woman in balance is gently powerful. She comes from her gentleness, and that's what you're starting to discover, is your gentle power. And it unfolds. It's nothing you can force at all. A man in balance is powerful, gentle. So the power element is the masculine, the gentleness is the feminine. And when you're coming from that space of being authentic, gently powerful, and he or whoever the relationship is, the more masculine energy of the two, comes from the space of being powerfully gentle, magic happens. It becomes effortless. It becomes, not to say you don't ever have disagreements or different points of view, but it becomes more effortless because vibrationally you're connecting on the same level. And this is where we make so many mistakes in the dating game. We try and force things to happen out of fear, loneliness, desperation, whatever that lower base energy is. We try and force a square peg in a round hole, and we wonder why we end up in relationships that are dysfunctional. And the other aspect for me always is I have to take responsibility for me in how I show up wherever I am, in whatever relationship I'm in. So the basic advice image was very strong in terms of bringing together, because also within the basic crises, you've got the masculine and the feminine. It's not either or. It's masculine and it's both and it's not either or. And that was the image that came straight to mind.
And if we take that one step further and speak to where I believe that our healing as people happens in relationship. Self-love, I got an image now. Self-love is not the first step. The first step is valuing myself and having enough compassion for myself to want to receive love. And in receiving love, the gift is self-love. So that was like quite a cool piece that came through now.
It's like the little seeds that you're planting in order to harvest what self-love is.
Yeah, because it feels so far, like self-love always felt so far away. But if I take it back from the journey that I've gone through, especially now going through my second divorce, in that I started to value myself. And in valuing myself, I was able to have compassion for me and others around me. And in so doing that, the gift was self-love and love from source. So, and then the other thing is about, I really believe that there's a lot of healing we do, with source, like vertically, like our vertical memberships with source. But I think that there's a lot of healing that we offer and we share horizontally with each other. And it doesn't mean we get plugged into each other horizontally. We're vertical beams of light, and the light that we emit, the energy that we emit, is how it touches other people's lives. So it's not this kind of connection, it's this kind of connection, and then the light that connects or doesn't connect.
Let me position that for you in sacred geometry terms. So when you have, we call it involution and evolution. So involution, it comes from spirit. So it looks like when it joins together, it becomes the Magen David, which is the Jewish Star of David. But the energy comes through this way as an evolution, and it goes from matter into spirit this way. So that's your evolution. So involution comes down, evolution comes up. We are receiving and we are gifting with that energy in itself.
Amazing.
When we start to talk about the connection, now we bring in another sacred geometry form, and it's beautiful. There's 7 elements to it, and that for me is what encompasses self-love, and that's known as the seed of love. and it mirrors the seven days of creation. So it's an interlocking. We can post when you post this up, we can post a diagram for what the seed of life looks like. The seed of life is feminine, and it's bringing in the sense of community, compassion, connection. So I'm receiving, I'm giving. There's the masculine energy. You can see the lines. Lines always work for masculine energy, but I'm doing so within the context of the seed of life. And that seed of life activates out of our heart. So the divine feminine will lead the balance of the masculine, of the sacred masculine energy, because the divine feminine houses creation. It is she, her energy, that fosters. It's not to say that the masculine energy doesn't create, it does it very differently. But the original, if you go back into the beginnings of the Bible and Genesis, the 7 days of creation. Creation is a feminine energy, and if we don't come into balance, we block creative energy. We block our access to self-love because we're not creative. We shut it down.
Beautiful,
Sure.
beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
So I've actually got to go on a date now.
Hey!
So,
You can try all this stuff out.
Yeah. So I've really loved chatting to you today. I mean, you and I really are soul sisters, and I thank you for being born. Thank you for being choosing this time that we can, serve humanity, serve each other, serve ourselves, serve God or Source. At this time, is there anything you'd like one last thing you'd like to leave with the viewers?
I think that the start of this journey, the dating journey, is to come to peace with yourself, to know your soul self, and to connect with your own spiritual and psychic energies as well. The opening up of your intuition, trusting yourself, trusting the fact that you can be vulnerable. It's the most beautiful space to be. Brené Brown, she talks about it over and over again, but it absolutely is. I am responsible for me, and I'm responsible for safeguarding my own energies as well. So I can can you hear the masculine coming in? There's the responsibility that comes in. I can be as open and vulnerable as I choose to be, as long as I am also making sure that I am not open sesame for the whole world to come and gobble up. And that I can be discerning in terms of how much I allow out, or how much energy I'm allowed, and how much opening I'm allowed to do. And I think that's one of the things with dating as well. Too many people kind of come together in a dating space. It becomes like the dating with the of the birds, kind of fluffing up the tail feathers, jump into bed at the first opportunity that they can, and then wonder what the next happen. I mean, there's a whole, you and I have spoken about it, there's a romantic ritual, there is a courtship. And I think that we as women in particular don't allow the masculine energy to step into its vibrational energy of really courting us as women. We don't allow that. Courting ourselves. And really going through, and I know that that's one of the things you want to go through for your event in June, is starting to really open up into what does romance really mean? How do we bring romance? And I'm not talking the cheesy stuff. Talking real deep-seated heart stuff. How do we bring romance back? Because that's really also here. So it is the energy of love, it is the energy of caring, nurturing, compassion, as well as the protection, guardianship energy of masculine.
Yeah, because I really believe that if we're, and I know it in my own life, I've experienced it, that when I have an elevated sense of self, meaning my energy is raised and I experience joy, people are more receptive to me. I tend to notice more synchronicities. People that come into my life are definitely there to teach me something. And I really believe with this festival, if people can come into a space of celebration, and you see the ball there, I've got a glitter ball there. And that for me is about this. My words this year are celebrating life, and I believe that if we celebrate life, we celebrate ourselves, and we celebrate each other, we're elevating our energetic levels, and we're going to be able to be more creative. We're going to be able to be more loving. There's going to be more healing for each other, for ourselves, and I just think it's going to be fun. Going to be fun. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Just to wrap it up, is that the healing of the planet begins with each one of us healing ourselves. And for those of us in the professions that are assist with coaching, learning, psychic readings, whatever it is, training, and I'm not talking higher level stuff, I'm not talking the skill-based stuff of laying a table, I'm talking about really getting in touch with ourselves. That's where we start to open up to allow people to heal. And as each one of us heals, we heal our families, we heal our communities, we heal our country, and we heal our world. And that's really, so let your light, I think, you want to read that thing again, just let your light shine, just that last little bit of what it was, because this is how it happens, it comes through and I never remember it.
So all the aspects of me, being Angela James, the intuitive psychic, teacher and storyteller, come together to offer you a world of learning designed to let your light shine, to weave your dreams, and as we collectively offer ourselves in service to those we are called to shine our light upon. So beautiful. Thank you, my beautiful friend. Thank you for joining us today.
So yeah, if you want to know anything more about what I'm doing, www.angelajames.co.za. Doing a lot of work around purpose, activating people's purpose. The joy that I have in my heart when I see you truly embracing your purpose and bringing your healing energy out into the world, I cannot even begin to describe how joyful that makes me. So enjoy your dates.
And thank you. To my viewers, thank you for joining us. Please feel free to comment, like, and share. It's always such a joy for me to hear from you and hear what you like, what you dislike, and what you'd like to hear more about. Please feel free to connect and let me know what kind of topics and themes within the dating world that you're struggling with or that you're celebrating and that you'd like me to touch on. Mwah! Sending you so much love. I wish you a beautiful day and remember to celebrate life.